And welcome to CWC's Family Connection. How are you tonight? Here with Pastor Jason to talk to you about your message. And again, just another in a series of messages that have come through that are just, they're hitting home, and they're not hitting gently. You're not knocking on the door, you're breaking a door down.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I try to bring as best as I can, so.
Yep. Well, it was. I mean, right from the get-go, you mentioned something, and I've never thought of it quite as bluntly as you put it, and it creates an interesting idea. But God created us with this hole intentionally that only He can fill, knowing that He's the only one who can fill it.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like the cosmic setup.
Yeah,
and the sooner, like I mentioned, the sooner we figure that out, the better off we'll be as far as focusing our energy and our pursuits on trying to find what is that whole, rather than, kind of being disoriented. It's kind of like, walking with nothing in this arm and a really big heavy suitcase on that. You're limping around wondering, why is everything getting sore over here and I'm off bound? Just pause and do a deep search on, do you really feel that fulfillment? Have you found that? And if you haven't, then to pause and really seek that out. Otherwise, it just seems like all our efforts kind of fall flat on their face, and that can be depressing, that can be defeating. And so you can see how this message of how God has created us with that hole and only He can fill is actually a message of complete hope and of peace, really. Just recognizing that He has gone over and beyond to reach out to us, to connect with us, and I almost feel like we have to deliberately not listen to Him.
Yeah.
And He's just after us that much. And I want people to know that hole doesn't go away and nothing else can fill it. Yet we all realize it's there. So.
Yeah, and that's that's one of the things that I was thinking about afterwards, because people who are out there that are not Christian, they know that there's something in their life that's missing. That it's born into us. We can't escape it, and they're out there trying all sorts of different things. And some things are bad, like it can be drugs, it can be alcohol. Some things are not bad, but it could be sports, or it could be whatever. It doesn't necessarily equate to a bad thing, but it still is something that doesn't bring you total fulfillment. I used to think about work that way for me. Workaholic.
That's an addiction.
Yep, and I prided myself on the work that I did.
Right. Yeah.
And
even addictions, just in general, I think the biggest thing about them that make them so destructive is they isolate you from relationships with other people. You might, be around people while you are looking for that whatever to fill the hole. But number one, it doesn't fill it. Number two, everybody else is trying to fill it, so you're really not connecting, and you lose that connection with really what life is about, and that's kind of the sad road. And that's why James is talking about who is wise and understanding among you. Do you have somebody who can step back from, as I said, that drama or the emotions? We live in a world where we can get fed with a lot of stuff on the TV or internet, and they can really stir us up. So who among you can step back from that, be conscious of those things, but not be tied up in the emotions that might produce panic, fear, anger, frustration, and be able to see that bigger picture. And I think how James was talking, especially if we know the situation of his readers when he was writing it, we really get a good idea of anything other than the pursuit of wisdom is going to just be a reaction to whatever the circumstances are. And that's really a hard way to live, because it's hard to make any forward progress. And that's really what James is talking about, whether it's back to spiritual maturity or really wanting his congregation to be strong enough to withstand some of the trials of that day. And so he's just saying wisdom is that key. And then for him to take the next couple of verses and say, you absolutely will have people fighting against your pursuit of wisdom. Mm-hmm. They will be actively against you in that pursuit. They will try to diffuse the things that you're trying to obtain. They will, with whatever ambitions that they're struggling with, the enemy will put those situations in the path to seeking out wisdom. And I thought that was the most interesting. It's not just a struggle to say, should I, as we mentioned, how can I work through hard times? Mm-hmm. We mentioned right before getting on camera, we can gain knowledge. Yep. But if we don't know how to apply knowledge, which there again was your definition for wisdom, it's knowledge applied in the right situations. It's a skill set that plugs in when it needs to. If we're not able to do that, it doesn't matter how much knowledge we've gained, and that's typically what happens in a church, is we can understand a lot. But if we can't apply it, then, and especially if we can't apply it when hard times come, mm-hmm. then how are we actually growing? So that's hard enough as it is. Then you encounter people who basically mock those who want to go after wisdom, or want to shortcut it and celebrate the shortcuts and say, everybody, this is the easy way, this is the shortcut. So the pursuit for wisdom is really challenging. And if we don't know that, we are going to give up in that process. Even if we do know it, we might want to give up. Yeah. So that's why he says, who is wise among you? It's a rare characteristic. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason he's asking that is kind of in a way that he's concerned. Wisdom is not being valued. Right. Because you're either trying to escape hard times or you're finding something else to fill that hole. And then you have all the people who are escaping and filling the hole. They get convicted that there are some people going after wisdom, and it irritates. It stirs, yep. and not in a good way. It agitates. And as a result, they start to have behaviors that start to move against that pursuit of wisdom. And if, like I said, if we're not wary of that, it's going to be a really challenging pursuit, even if we have everything else lined up. So
yeah, and in thinking of it, you've talked about, in the past we've talked maturity and so on like that, but it almost sort of seems like it really comes under the umbrella of this whole idea of wisdom, because there's a lot of people out there who read scriptures, can quote them backwards, forwards, and inside out. They have all sorts of knowledge of church history. They have knowledge of the scriptures. The lacking part is the wisdom and how to apply all of that.
Right. Or better, even worse, is that they'll just throw out scriptures when it's not the right time for, that type. It's just, here's a thought that might connect, and it's not spirit-led, and it ends up coming off, religious, or at that point, almost a religious abuse, because it's not a connection with other people and what they're dealing with. And so wisdom is the antidote. Wisdom itself is the ability to understand we don't just automatically connect. There are a lot of rough edges, but wisdom can come in and address those things and give the opportunity for people to find solutions, find connection, find maturity, find second chances, find forgiveness, and in other words, the things that would typically get in our way and stop even a community from moving forward. Wisdom comes in, is very real with them, says, these are the issues. Can we deal with them collectively? And that's not easy, but those that see the value in that connection and that moving forward, or that growth and maturity, would say, we better take a long, hard look at this type of opportunity to make that connection. And those that don't end up, as James said, they end up growing bitter with envy and strife and all of these emotions that really just say, you know what, forget it. And if you're after it, let me tell you how angry I am from my experience. And it just kind of breeds some contempt and some separation. And so wisdom is the key, but there are a lot of situations, certainly the enemy wants to use all these situations, that war against wisdom. And really, if the children of God are after wisdom, then they need to know there is an all-out attack on that pursuit. And they need to be aware of that, not in fear, but actually in confidence and strength. But it requires a focus. And if they're not focused, they're going to get hit and they're going to get blindsided. And myself as a pastor, I want to be able to express that to people and say, the pursuit is real. It's there. It's supernatural. The seeking after and the obtaining. But there is an enemy that wants to not only get in your way, he wants to destroy you.
Yeah.
And I just want people to continue to seek after wisdom, knowing that it's so precious, but then not be surprised at some of the attacks, some of the resistance that they encounter.
But like you said, then therein is the absolute need for community. We cannot do this alone. There's just no way.
No, and I mentioned a little bit that even some of the things that I'm dealing with right now, I've had to, not only I read the Serenity Prayer, well, that came from my now being involved with Celebrate Recovery.
Yeah.
And I'm involved with 2 other 12-step groups, Al-Anon and another group. And so I have 3 support groups every single week. And when I really started to understand the level of attack against this pursuit, I had to reach out and recognize what some of those blind spots were. And 12-step groups have really been helpful for me to come back to some of the basics and see how people who have struggled with, like Celebrate Recovery, is for anyone with a hurt, a habit, or a hang-up. And I would dare say that to the audience. Raise your hand if you do not have a hurt, a habit, or a hang-up. So what that really means is even a 12-step recovery program is good, applicable information for every single person.
I was just going to say, it's almost like it's something that I think maybe people should visit at least once a year. Just go back into that and to make sure that you are healthy on the inside.
Right. Yeah. And I have to do it every single day.
Yep.
I did it twice today. Today was a little bit more of a rough day. I had to do it twice. I went through all 12 steps 2 times today. And I just recognize, before I thought, I'm doing fine, until I realized that I'm doing fine because I'm not pressing as hard as the Lord would want me to.
Yeah.
When I do, the attack just it multiplies. And then I start to really struggle with the things I have not addressed internally. And we talked about that in those 5 messages at the beginning of James chapter 3. None of us have that stuff down. And if we don't have the tools to combat the enemy with being vulnerable, understanding our weaknesses, being able to turn it over to the Lord, being able to make amends for any wrongs, and to seek him out in all these situations, then we're not going to be able to make it individually. We need a group, and we need a community, and we need churches to be able to do this. So otherwise, wisdom's going to die out. It's literally going to be extinct.
Yeah, maybe what we should do is put a listing of those 12 steps on a web page or on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
We should maybe put that out there for people and let them take a look at it, because we need all the help we can get right now. And I think the Lord is pouring that out right now. It's there for the asking.
Right.
We're in a season. It's a changed season, I believe. And I just believe this is part of helping the bride become healthy.
Yeah, we're not fooling anybody by turning a blind eye to some of the things going on internally.
No, and we can't keep doing church the same way we've done for so many years with just coming in and being the nice,
Right.
And there are real things, and they need to be addressed. And it's going to be ripping scabs off wounds, I guess, a little bit, and it's going to be painful, and it's going to hurt, but it's going to be done in a safe place, in community, where there's support.
And there again, it's presenting some of these skills that is knowledge, but it's knowledge applied, which is that wisdom.
Yep.
And to recognize it is going to come through confession. It is going to come through repentance. It is going to come through admitting that I'm powerless to make some of these changes. And yet, turning that over to the Lord so that he can actually demonstrate who he really is, not just in a knowledge way, but in an experiential way. And there again, that becomes wisdom. And yet, James is pretty much saying, not a lot of people are going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to. They're not going to be able to stay steadfast in that pursuit. And really that's where that message came out this last week, is to say, if you want that, it's there. The beginning of James, I think it was in verse 5.
Yep.
If you want wisdom, ask and he will give it generously.
Yeah.
But just know that the way to receive it comes through these hard times. But if you pursue, because the value of wisdom, if you pursue through those hard times, what it starts to do within you and open your eyes really is life-changing.
Yeah.
So.
No, and this message really, I don't know if you would call this message number 6 in the series, or
I don't know.
or whether this is
It
message,
seemed to have
or
a
this is
theme.
message number 1 of a new series. But
I think it probably is. In fact, I named it Wisdom Part 1.
Yep.
And I don't know if it'll be a 2-parter or a 3-parter, but there will be another part.
Yep.
So.
And so for you who are watching, if you weren't here on Sunday, and even if you were here on Sunday, I would suggest you go back, take another listen to the message that Jason presented, and I would go back even further. This is just so fundamental for people to get. Go back through it, and maybe there will come a time where we can gather together as a community and have a discussion, like a group meeting about what it is you're talking about. Let's get some of this out into the open, and let's talk about some of this in a different setting.
Yeah.
But maybe that'll come out of this too. Anxious to see where God is taking this.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people say you need to write a book. Maybe. I don't know. But either way,
I
it
start
is.
a movie about it.
I could start a movie. Yeah, who would play me?
The Chosen.
I don't know.
Anyways,
Channing Tatum or something.
we do have a couple of things coming up. This Thursday is going to be our prayer night, community prayer in the park. I can't encourage you enough to take the time to consider coming out to that. People have been coming out, and it is just an amazing experience getting together with other believers from different churches and so on like that, and just coming together in unity and in one accord and praying over our community. And I've heard news coming in about a couple of things happening in the community, which really convinces me that prayer matters.
Absolutely.
It's making a difference.
Yeah.
And we need people to come in and join in on this. So Thursday night prayer. We're coming into October.
Yep.
I should put in a plug for Canadian Thanksgiving, but I won't. But there is our Friday night worship coming up in October, the third Friday of the month. And
Beef and Bullets.
Beef and Bullets is October 9th, and that is going to be at Shane Rock's farm. If you don't shoot, even if you don't own a gun, come on out anyways.
We'll have plenty of them for you.
There's plenty of guns, and even if you don't want to shoot, we're keeping the shooting in a safe area for anybody who's concerned about that. The churches, we're supplying the meat, whatever that happens to be, and we just ask you to sign up. Let us know somehow that you're going to come so that we know how much to buy. And then you bring a side. If you can, that's great. If you can't, I'm sure there'll be enough to eat. There always is. So I think that's all the announcements that we've got for tonight.
Sounds good.
Thank you again for coming in, and looking forward to part 2 of Wisdom.
Yeah, like I said, it might be part 2, maybe it'll be 3 parts, I don't know yet.
Maybe by the time you get to that, I'll be finished licking the wounds off from the first one. So, anyways, everybody, thanks so much for having us in your home tonight. And Sunday, 10:30, if you can be here in person, that would be great. If you can't, make sure you join us online, and have a blessed week for the rest of the week, and hope to see you then. Bye now.
See you later.